Welcome to the Boxing Source Midweek Report, where we tackle the latest topics in the sport of boxing here up to this point every single Wednesday. Time to start the show.
Yo, what's up, everybody? What's going on? Hopefully, you're able to hear what's going on. Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Checking in here. Yes, it is a little bit behind schedule of sorts, but I had a few things here that I was doing here on the road, on the move, as always here. Here in the Washington D.C. area, right? So wanted to make sure that you're able to see what's up, what's going on, and what's happening here for this edition of the Boxing Source Midweek Report here for December 17th, 2025. Yeah, a lot of things have been going on here over the past couple of days. And even with all of that, there's a few other things that I haven't been able to catch up on. I mean, listen, we know about the big announcement that took place yesterday, on the World Week Boxing Channel, and it was simulcast here on the Boxing Source. We did kind of touch on it a little bit there with Mr. Terence Allen Crawford. Okay, so you have that went down yesterday. Today we had a series of fights, that involved multiple notable fighters there within the boxing ring, and we got more stuff that's coming up. We got stuff through ProBox that's up for tomorrow. And then, of course, on Netflix, you have with the main event there, Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. So we're going to be going through a lot of that stuff there in this particular edition of the Midweek Report, and a few other things here, to kind of like catch up, right? Because I had been hitting the gyms here today, pretty much like went through the whole gambit of what's going on here in the DC area. Of course, I did talk about the recent news of the Pro Box card that will be in the DC area on January 30th. Yep, that's right. That is the day before you're going to have Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson in New York City on January 31st. And of course, you have other events going on January 31st that involve world championship fights in the 154-pound division, right? But wanted to go on and touch on the main topic here when it comes to Terence Crawford. Yeah, Terence Crawford was able to score the win over Santos Saul Alvarez Barragan in September to become the undisputed, once again, the undisputed super middleweight champion. The top man, 168, having all the titles at 140 pounds, all the titles at 147 pounds, and then all the titles at 168 pounds. Was a clear cut number one fighter pound for pound at the time, after scoring the win. And pretty much he'll still have him atop the Boxing Source pound for pound rankings up until he said what he said yesterday, saying that, hey, listen, I've accomplished everything that I wanted to accomplish in this sport. Who knew that having being able to get in the ring would get me all the things that got me over the course of my life or my career. And he said, listen, he wanted to basically go out within his terms. You know what I mean? Like I said, you're there at 42 or whatever and right? You did get these wins over the likes of a Canelo Alvarez, over Errol Spence Jr., over Sean Porter, over Amir Khan or things like that, right? And with that being said, now you could just close the chapter on his particular career. And it was like I was saying before the fight at the press conference when I asked the question to him, right? And we was talking about it being the Terence Crawford era, and if he was able to get the win over Canelo Alvarez, what would that mean for him in the history or the overall history of the sport of boxing? And he said, "Hey, man, stamp the name in the history books, and the debate will be over." And it meant the era that he was able to fight in, that he was the number one man in that era. Okay. And well, he was able to kind of like prove it with that win over Canelo Alvarez, right? So now talking about his whole thing with the retirement, um, a number of people thought that maybe he would be able to have a rematch against Canelo Alvarez. That Canelo, had said days before that he would want to, recover from his injury. Then after getting back, from surgery and everything like that, that he will want another fight with Terence Crawford. And now Terence Crawford says, "Hey, you know what? I've done what I had to do. I got everything I need. I was able to get paid whatever I got paid for the fight with Canelo Alvarez. I got paid, a good amount of money for, having a fight against Israel Madrimov, having the money that I got for fighting Errol Spence Jr. I'm pretty much good, And what does this mean for, overall, what I would say, the state of the sport right now? What it would do, I guess, I would say, listen, you wouldn't necessarily have that fight with Crawford and Canelo happening again, whether it was going to be at, Allegiant Stadium or somewhere else in Vegas, or maybe another site that maybe they would have came up with. But that's out of the table. Okay. That could open the door for Canelo to fight some other, person that maybe we didn't necessarily expect there within the 168-pound division or maybe elsewhere. I kind of brought up suggestions yesterday, like a rematch with Dimitri Bivol, or finally getting in the ring with David Benavidez. Not sure if that's likely, but I mean, that's possibilities. But for Terence Crawford, does this kind of say that, what he said in reference to the WBC, say, you know what, I'm pretty much like out the door. That's it. I'm good. That's all you need from me at this point. I don't need to, be paying fees left and right or whatever it is, you know what I'm saying, to these sanctioning bodies for holding all of these titles. And that, at this juncture, I've already proven myself I should be bigger than these belts. And that if I was going to fight in any shape, form, or fashion, that it really shouldn't involve titles. But either way, him stepping out, the way that he stepped out, kind of like reminds, me of like when Andre Ward stepped out or, walked away from the game after, scoring his wins over Sergey Kovalev and having to stop his win over Sergey Kovalev, So he was able to go out and know his own terms, undefeated, 32-0, whatever it was, right? And now you got Terence Crawford here, going out, at the record of 42-0, with those multiple division world championships at 135, 140, 147, and 168. Also that belt at 154 that he got from Israel Madrimov with that win over Israel Madrimov. So, hey, how would you define Terence Crawford at this particular juncture, right? You got, like I said, multi-division world champion, right? Multi-division undisputed champion, okay? Has the wins that I mentioned against the Canelo, against the Errol Spence, against the Sean Porter, against the Amir Khan, you know, against what was it, like the Jeff Horn, after Jeff Horn defeated Manny Pacquiao, against a Victor Posto, who was undefeated when they fought. Raymond Beltran. Remember, it started off with the Yuri Yorkis Gamboa, handing Yuri Yorkis Gamboa his first loss. So he had like a number of fighters that were undefeated, and that he was able to hand them their first loss, whether it was Gamboa, Victor Postal, Julius Ndongo, Jeff Horn, Jose Benavidez, Kavaliauskas, Errol Spence, Israel Madrimov. Those are some of the guys that he was able to defeat and hand them their first loss in their professional career. So when you define the career of Terence Crawford, it has to, of course, be up there when it comes to this particular era. And how would it compare to other fighters in previous generations, whether it's from the early 2000s, the 2010s, the 80s and 90s, that type of stuff. How would you define Terence Crawford's career in comparison to a number of these other fighters that have been the top guys within those particular eras? You know, I've seen some things where they say, hey, maybe Terence Crawford could be considered, top five all time. Top five all time. I mean, as of like right now, at least for me, I think that's kind of like quick to, kind of like judge that. Because with the sport of boxing, there's a lot, and I mean a lot of fighters to, kind of like go over or go through that say, hey, okay, Terence Crawford could be, defined as over all of these guys, right? So I'm not sure like where I would have him standing all time. As far as like the modern era, yeah, you gotta put him, there around at the top. It's just that like how are you going to define him over like say for example the past 25 years? Like how would you define him from that? You know what I mean? Uh, Outside of that, and we have to you'll see how you be able to properly judge him in his career. A lot of people may criticize as far as like who he faced and when did he face them and how those opponents would be defined in the overall course of history, but also at the same time like it's not like you have those type of moments happen with other fighters in previous eras. There's been fighters that have been like underappreciated that had a great run, but given that they didn't have that many notable wins over some fighters, that they don't get as much credit as someone that maybe had a lot more notable fighters over the course of their professional careers. You know what I mean? So for Terence Crawford, here it is. It's pretty much like a day after him announcing the retirement. So like how we be able to judge that is up to debate. Depending on like if you favor him, if you didn't, if you kind of like look at his resume, look at his opponents, and see what you see from those. I mean that that's up to a lot of people. That's why it's very subjective at times when it comes to that. All right. But for Terence Crawford to be able to close his career with that win over Canelo Alvarez in September 13th of this year at Allegiant Stadium, kind of like define where he is overall in this particular era. I would say from 2000 up until now. You know what I mean? So, hey, props for Terence Crawford to kind of like go out on his own terms there in reference to this and say, hey, it's a wrap. Now that kind of like was it was some interesting timing, so to speak, at least for me, right? Because I mean, for those that's been following the channel, I kind of like said that I've been working on this for some time. But we had the whole thing with the trading joint. So, but I had already made this like way well, I wouldn't say way before, but I had made it had it created pretty much around the time that he had the fight with Canelo Alvarez. But given that he did make that announcement, it is under consideration. It is under consideration if I'm gonna have those things available right off the rip. Well, I will say this: the trainer of Terence Bud Crawford does have a couple of these trading cards already. Already sent it off to him. Already there, within the sports academy, all that type of stuff. So that's a couple from right there. And then I'm gonna see if I can, get in contact with the reps there for Crawford and just have a couple for him right off the rip before anything happens for the public. I might just do that when it comes to Terence Crawford, especially given what's happened here with Terence Crawford's retirement. You know what I mean? So, hey, we gonna see. But I mean, some people have said like, hey, listen, we've seen fighters retire before and get right back in the ring, after a year or two or whatever it is. But we talk about with Terence Crawford being at 38 years old. Sometimes given what's been going on in the sport of boxing, is it's supposed to be like a young man sport, so to speak. So if you feel like, hey man, there isn't much else I could do in boxing, then what's the point of me staying here and trying to stay active? Now, again, with Terence Crawford, it's like he's pretty much fought once a year since what 2019. So he's had that one fight in 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. So I mean, he's only like had that one fight and then been good for the rest of the year. So it ain't really that much for him to kind of like you know get off of the or step away, because if he's just getting prepared for one fight, hey, it's not much away from his regular schedule or whatever he's had as a schedule. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like my kind of early take on this thing when it comes to Terence Crawford. Now you've had a number of people speak on it. I mentioned like Andre Ward. He pretty much like said, "Hey, listen, what when he saw what was going on after the fight, he said, listen, after getting that win over Canelo Alvarez, he said he wouldn't mind if Terence Crawford called it a career." And here we are, fast forward, and that's what he's doing. Now, some people may say that, hey, maybe he's doing this because that potential rematch with Canelo, he ain't really, getting I guess the offer that he's looking for, or that he's not getting the money that he's looking for. And that's maybe why he's calling it a career. But, like I said, I mean, he's had a few of these fights where he's gotten a good amount of money, in comparison to what he had in the past. So, you know what I mean? So let's see what it goes on that front. Let's see, man. I might, open the thing here for the lines, or for folks to join here real quick. So just give me a moment, and I'll see if I'll be able to drop the link or something like that. If you're able to join and you'll chime in on what's happening there with Terence Crawford, and then I'm going to talk about the whole thing coming up with Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua. So let me see here, man. I'm gonna go ahead and see if y'all could go through and join here if you can, just through Rumble and whatnot. So that's what I'm kind of like saying here. So if y'all wanted to chime in a little bit, put in your 2 or 3 cents on what happened here with Terence Crawford and him announcing this assignment, then you'll be able to do that here real quick, and then I'm gonna just go through a couple of things that happened today. Wanted to let me see if I can pull it up, because you did have what was it, Tim Tszyu in action earlier today, and you also had your fights over in Tokyo, Japan there. So that's what was going on through the schedule here real quick, right? So I wanted to see if I could run that real quick, right? You had the thing there with Tim Tszyu against Anthony Velasquez. So I felt like that was interesting that you would have Tim Tszyu back in the mix. You know what I mean? And that was something there. I got Timothy Taylor in the building. He says the boxer needs Terence Crawford and Canelo for at least 2 years until Boots Ennis, Devin, Miles Haney, and Virgil Ortiz can carry on the torch. Well, I mean, Canelo did say like he was going to fight 4 or 5 more times, and that was before the Terence Crawford fight. And even with this injury that he's recovering from, he still would want to be active for a few more fights. When it comes to like a number of the fighters that you have mentioned, it's not like they're overall like a guy that kind of stands out and when it comes to marketability, but sometimes, in this day and age, you may have to do a little bit extra in order to, be the popular guy. Devin Haney is a polarizing figure within social media or boxing social media, or whatever it is. I guess he's coming off of that win against Brian Norman Jr. to become the WBO welterweight champion. He's been a undisputed champion at lightweight, WBC champion at super lightweight. Had that, win over Vasilomachenko, defending that undisputed lightweight championship. But a number of people, like, either they like him or they really don't like him, and they don't even really kind of like concern themselves to participate in seeing him fight. With the thing, of course, with like Floyd Mayweather, whether you like him or you hate him, as long as you watched him, that's all he cared about. If you wanted to see him win or you wanted to see him lose, that's all he cared about, as long as you wanted to see him. You do have Devin Haney here, currently undefeated. Yep, technically undefeated. And like I said, was able to get this big win over Brian Norman Jr. But will that carry over into 2026 and seeing that, okay, is he going to be like the guy that people want to see fight? Who knows? You know what I mean? You had the thing there with Boots Ennis and Virgil Ortiz. We got to see if they're going to be fighting in 2026. And according to one particular person under one particular camp, it ain't looking all too good for that to happen, man. That's that I'm still like, come on, man. The more they talk, the more it seems like it's not going to happen. When things are kind of quiet, that's when you see that fights are going to happen. All right, I'm going to see here if we could get a guest here to chime in on the midweek report. Being able to be a guest on here, chime in if they're able to get what's going on. I wanted to see what the name is and where they're hailing from. Should be Never Fold in the building.
Yo, boxing source, what's good with you, buddy?
Yo, what's happening, man? What's good?
Shit, we chilling, man. What's going on in the sport of boxing, man? I see you cooking right now.
Yeah. I mean, you had the thing that happened yesterday with Terence Crawford announcing his retirement, had a video and everything like that. What's your thoughts on Terence Crawford having that retirement speech?
It came out of left field, but it's three things that I thought about that I could see why he chose now to say that he's retiring from the sport of boxing. So one of the plans for him was to go undisputed at 60. Janabek tested positive, right? Then Canelo's ducking that rematch. We seen a clip of Crawford like a couple days ago. They asked him, "Yo, you heard about the plans?" Canelo saying that he don't want to fight in May, but he want to fight in September. Crawford said he never heard about that, right? And then what's the third one? Canelo, Janabek. It's another thing that I'm missing. Like, I made the 3 points, so it's 3 points. As a competitor, if you having things like that, the biggest money fight is a rematch with Canelo. Canelo is not trying to rematch, so it's like he already accomplished a lot of things in boxing. There's really nothing else for him to do. So I could see why he he's hanging the gloves up, but I think it's a possibility that he could come back in the sport of boxing. We'll see.
Now, the thing with Canelo Alvarez, I was, out there for the fight, seeing, Crawford being able to get that win and become undisputed super middleweight champion of the world. And then what it was like about a month and a half or 2 months after, they had, released the news there in reference to Canelo Alvarez. But given that injury that he had, I didn't really expect for Canelo to get back in the ring in May anyway. I thought it was going to be, if they were going to have a rematch, it was going to be in September of next year.
Yeah.
So I thought that even with the condition of Canelo Alvarez, I didn't see him really getting back in the ring in any form of fashion until probably September anyway. But given that you would have that type of situation there for Crawford. And like you said, it's the biggest money fight that was out there, the biggest, most lucrative option for Terence Crawford. And if he's not necessarily going to have that or have it within his terms, then what would be the point of him revisiting that?
Yeah.
And
And
then,
then the last point I forgot to
okay,
say was the WBC problems. I think that
yeah,
was the last one, and then he was like, "You know what? I'm walking away from this."
yeah. That was one thing I mentioned, but another key point that you were talking about with the situation in the middleweight division, having the thing with Janabek testing positive, which had him scratched off the fight against Erislan De Lara that was supposed to happen in San Antonio, Texas. That was supposed to be a unification bout where it would have been, the winner would have had three of the four major titles at 160. So now with Janabek, being scratched out, that would delay that whole situation there at 160. So it's like, why would Terence Crawford wait it out and just fight one of these guys just for like one of the belts or whatever it is? That's not necessarily what it would be going for. You know what I mean? So that kind of like knocked that out of the picture. And then the whole thing with the WBC, like you said, I mean the WBC saying, hey, yeah, you could pay that percentage, but we also want a little bit more on top of that percentage. You know what I mean? Kind of like said, like, yo, the WBC be pulling that off sometimes. You know what I mean?
They moving like the government.
I mean, the government, man. I mean, the government been moving like that ever since its inception. But that's a whole nother story. But that was kind of like, I pointed to like years ago when Miguel Cotto was about to fight Canelo, right?
Yep.
Like he had the WBC belt at the time because he had, beat Martinez, right? Maravilla Martinez. And then he was fighting Canelo or whatever it is. And then he was paying the fee for holding the WBC belt. But then the WBC said, hey, on top of that, you gotta pay this much for a step aside fee so that because you ain't facing your mandatory challenger. And Cotto was like, you know what? Nah, I'm good on that. You know what I'm saying? So the WBC stripped him, or he wasn't even recognized as a champ before fighting Canelo. So they be having multiple moments like this. But this time around here with Terence Crawford just made it public, and it kind of like reminding people of other fighters or other notable fighters mentioning what's going on, with these sanctioning bodies or the WBC, when they ask for such amount of money that might be outside of their percentage, and what does it go to? You know what I mean?
Mm,
So,
yep.
so that was the thing, man. Shout out to Timothy Taylor. He's talking about David Benavidez has a chance if he could find a proper dance partner like Bivol or Beterbiev. Man, I don't know because I don't know what's up with Bivol right now, and it reminds me of and the thing with Beterbiev. I don't even know what's up with him because remember he was supposed to fight on November 22nd, and all of a sudden that fight just
I
just
thought they took him off that card because it was rumors out there like Bivol and Better BF started back negotiating. I don't know how true
mm,
that is, but that's what I heard. I thought the fight was gonna get announced, and we haven't heard nothing from Better BF. We just been hearing him saying that he would he liked what he's seen from Benavidez.
I mean, it's interesting because the thing with Benavidez is after he had that fight with Anthony Yarde, he announced that he's fighting Zerto.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, if Benavidez is going up the cruiserweight to fight Zerto, then I guess you could still go ahead with the rematch with Bivol and Beterbiev. But I don't even know.
I mean, Bivol been moving funny because look, he said that he got hurt. Instead of doing a surgery immediately after the fight, he waited months after and then did the surgery on his own time. And now I'm hearing talks about him fighting a tune-up. You know what I mean? Then I'm hearing maybe he'll fight I forgot the name that was being mentioned, but it was like three names, and I'm guessing like on the third on their third fight, then they'll fight a Better BF, which is crazy.
That's crazy work, especially with Beterbiev. He basically fights once a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
and
he
Better
makes
BF is
all
40 now, right? Or
yeah,
39?
And you know what I was thinking that with Bevo, he was gonna get back in the ring and fight like a Michael Leifert, you know, who's like an IBF man though. But it's like you got like a Benavidez, you got like a Beterbiev rematch, and then you got a Michael Leifert. So it's like what are we doing here with that? You know what I mean? So I don't know what the situation is going to be for 2026 when it comes to Dimitri Vivo, but hopefully it will involve someone like a Baturbia because a lot of these other fighters they're kind of like booked up. I gotta get an update on the thing with Callum Smith and David Morrell Jr. I was speaking with Morrell's trainer there, so they were looking like they were gonna try to get that sorted out for next year too. So it's a crazy situation. With Timothy Taylor saying something we're not hearing might have happened between Turkey and Terence Crawford because I don't think he would have retired if Turkey begged him not to retire. I don't
I
know.
mean, how can Turkey beg somebody to not retire when the biggest money fight that person is not trying to fight? It takes two
Yeah.
to tango. You feel me? If
Mhm.
one is trying to fight, the other don't want to fight. The fight can't happen. If both wants to fight, it's going to happen.
It's gonna
The
happen.
prime example: Spence and Bud. Spence team did not want that fight, but Spence made it happen.
Yeah, but he wanted that fight because he wanted undisputed. Once he was able to get all the belts, he's like, hey, we want undisputed. We don't want to fight anybody else. Like no fights in the interim, none of that, or no moving up, none of that. Either Terence Crawford or nothing. No at the time like a Keith Thurman or nothing. No, he wasn't. He wasn't for that. Like he was not gonna like say when you had the whole thing with Terence Crawford initially declining the fight for that particular year in 2022. Crawford ended up fighting somebody in David Evansian, but Spence was like, "Nah, I'm not gonna be fighting anybody. Either it's Terence Crawford or nothing." So, that was the thing on that front. But here I guess given that it is the biggest fight that Turkey Al-Sheikh and them could make at this point, maybe the numbers just didn't look right, at the time or whatever it was. You feel me?
Yeah, and then according to Bernie the boxer, which is he's a part of Team Crawford, he said
Mhm.
Crawford won 100 mil.
Yeah, I mean, he said 100 mil. I mean that's a pretty significant number.
I
You know what
mean,
I mean?
did Canelo get 150 from I don't
Hey,
know.
hey. All I know is, man, I wish that the Nevada State Athletic Commission didn't privatize fight purses when they did, because they would have, been able to say, what these fighters made. But
Yeah.
given, and I'm talking about like up front, not, of course,
Yeah,
back
yeah,
and
yeah.
all that type of stuff, right? Because I mean, you seen there with Terence Crawford, he just gave out the example of him having the base purse at $10 million for the fight against
I
Canelo
believe
Alvarez because he had to
it.
pay the 3% the WBC, the 3% WBA, and so forth. So that just told you. But yeah, if
12%.
if you're gonna give Canelo like 150 million for that fight against Terence Crawford, like yeah, that's some astronomical numbers. You feel me?
I
But
don't think he got that much,
yeah.
but I think he got close to it.
Well, he might either that or he probably at the least I would say 50 million up front.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be something like that, and then the endorsements and everything could put it up to like 150 million. You know what I'm saying? Because you
Yeah.
have all those Tecate or whatever the beer was, all those banners all over the place in Las
Yeah.
Vegas.
Sponsorships,
Yeah,
endorsements.
sponsorship. Yeah, so that's how they could get up to that particular number. You know what I mean? Now I was gonna look up the joints here from because man, they even had fights that was going on today, right?
Yeah.
But that's like over in Australia and Japan, and they had like for example, they had Tim Zhu back in the ring against Anthony Velasquez, and he was able to get a win, and it was like a decision win or whatnot. But you know, he said like he changed his team or what and whatnot, but to be honest, I don't know where what's going to be the option there for Tim Tszyu at this point because he ain't gonna be contending at no 154 pounds no more because Sebastian Fundora done beat him up twice. You know what I mean? He had the thing against Bakhmut, so it's not like he could really compete for one of those top spots at 154. I don't know. Maybe he could try to do something at 160, but that might be a tough task too. You know what I
So
mean?
so you think Tim Zoo is cooked food?
Yeah, I think he's cooked food, man. I think he's cooked food. We were talking about it yesterday, and we said, man, they made a mistake with Tim Tszyu having him continue that fight with Sebastian Fundora the first time. After he got hit with the people's elbow,
Yeah, yeah.
and his
That
nose
fight
got
was going good until he got elbowed,
yeah,
man.
yeah, exactly. He was actually like cooking
Yeah, he was
Sebastian
winning.
Fundora. You know what I mean? And then after that, it was just like a battle of attrition. And with him, having that decision lost and then getting back in the ring there against Bakhmut was a mistake.
Yeah,
We
Bakram
said,
messed him up.
yeah, but we said it could have even been worse because Tim Tszyu was really close to getting back in the ring
Charlo?
in August
Oh,
against Virgil Ortiz.
ooh, that would have been nasty.
Yeah, because he remember they had the Crawford, the fight there in Los Angeles
Yeah,
against Israel Madrimov. That fight between Tim Tszyu and Virgil Ortiz Jr. was pretty much proposed out there, and both agreed to it. It's just that they said Tim Tszyu they couldn't clear Tim Tszyu for having that fight at that date, so they waited until that backroom fight, and it still was a mistake. You know what I'm
let's not
saying?
forget. Let's not forget with Tim Zoo with the Charlo fight, because that's another bullet that he dodged. Because
Yeah,
Charlo was going to
that
mess
was
him
a
up for
couple.
sure.
Yeah, there were a couple of times when that fight could have happened and it didn't happen. You know what I mean? Timothy Taylor asked how much Turkey would pay Crawford to fight Jerome Boots Ennis. Man, I don't know, but whatever he paid Terence Crawford to fight Jerome Boots Ennis, he could pay Jerome Boots Ennis and Virgil Ortiz Jr. to go ahead and have their fight. So I mean, and it's not like the thing with Crawford and Boots like that ship has sailed. Once Crawford moved up from 147 to 154, that was it. That was it from any type of possibility of that fight happening. So I wouldn't think that would be something that Terence Crawford would be interested in, even if they had like a potential lucrative offer for Terence Crawford to fight a Boots Ennis, whether it be in like May or April or something like that, before potential rematch with Canelo Alvarez. Like he's not interested.
And Boots Ennis would have to need at least like a whole year to get ready because he just moved up to 54. All right.
Mhm.
So now he got to move up to 68. He got to put on that weight and train with the weight and
With the weight.
everything. Crawford did not just pop out the cut and just 68. No, he even admitted himself like he's
Yeah,
been working towards that for months.
for months. That was the thing about it is that once he had that fight against Israel Madrimov, that was the plan,
Yep.
Canelo Alvarez.
Yep.
So after recovering from that Madrimov
Right.
fight, that's what he was building towards. So
So that's a whole year for Boots, and by then Crawford would be 39. You know what I mean?
mhm.
So that's a whole year he ain't been in the ring. That's more time him spending with his family. Spending time with your family for that much of a long time, and you not fighting. You ain't trying to go back.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
it's a Canelo fight, maybe because
yeah.
you finna get 100 mil. But with Boots, he not finna get no 100 mil with no Boots. So yeah, that ship sailed, man.
I mean, yeah, and like I said with Crawford, he's fought like once a year since 2020.
Yep.
But you would have to like for him at this point, after we had the fight with Errol Spence Jr., those were the type of fights that he was looking for, like the big, like
Big money
events,
fights.
big money fights, big events, that type of thing. Like that's what he was looking for. So even with the thing with the one off with Israel Madrimov, that was like an event that he was still paid what 8 million,
Yeah.
off the purse, whatever it is. So if you're not talking more than 25 to $30 million, off the rip. I don't think Crawford would consider it. You know what I
I
mean?
mean, it said that Crawford earned 50 mil versus Canelo, and so
Hmm.
why would he be going back? Like
Yeah.
he would want any smart human being would want more now.
Hmm.
And it took Crawford it took him years to get to this point. He should have been at this point years ago.
Hmm. And the thing is, like, after he had the fight with Canelo Alvarez, right? Like, outside of having a rematch, the only other fight that maybe would have been under consideration at that time, immediately after defeating Canelo,
Hmm.
was a potential match against David Benavidez, which was
Yeah,
brought up by Turkey Al-Sheikh at the time, right?
yeah.
But if you're going to have David Benavidez going up and campaigning at 175, what's the point of him going back down to 168?
Benavidez wouldn't be able to make that weight,
Yeah,
bro.
and he wouldn't be able to make that at this point. Like, I mean, it's yeah, that was over. Like, once he fought what was it, Gvozdyk, Alexander
Yeah,
Gvozdyk, yeah, it
yeah, it
was
was
a wrap
over with.
for him. Yeah, it was
It
over.
was over with.
Feel me? So there you go, man. But yeah, you had all that stuff there with Terence Crawford, and yeah, I was talking about the things that happened today over in Australia, and also what in Japan.
I
You
heard Donaire lost. I
Yeah,
missed the
lost by
fights.
split decision there against Seiya Susumi, one of the Susumi brothers or whatever it is, man. Yeah, I don't know because I have to see if I saw Susumi in either his bout against Takuma Inoue or Daigo Higa before this Donaire fight, but I don't know. I might have to catch the highlights of this one because, like, hey, Donaire was like real close to having a thing there with that WBA bantamweight title, but it is what it is on that. And then you had like a flyweight title on the line and a light flyweight title on the line there. Renee Santiago defeated Kayasuke Takami there. I wonder how that decision went down there. You know what I mean? That would have been some funny stuff right there. What is it? Taylor says Virgil Ortiz fights Bucenis and wins by knockout. With Mexican fans create a buzz for a Crawford versus Virgil Ortiz fight, where Turkey would break the bank to make the fight, and I don't know. Because as of right now, it don't even look like folks is really gravitating towards Virgil Ortiz like that. I thought I would have seen something when he had the fight against Erickson Lubin, but one, they had the fight in was it in Fort Worth, right? Instead of
Yeah,
like full fledged like Dallas, Texas, and that particular venue really doesn't hold that many people in capacity. And even with that, I didn't even see that many people up in there.
hmm.
So I'm like, that would have been the test run there for Virgil Ortiz Jr. to kind of like put him out there to say, hey, okay, does he have enough attention to be like, okay, we could build something with him? Like, say, for example, Jaime Munguia, right? Like Jaime Munguia, what they did with him is they built him up over in Mexico and have him get a little bit of a crowd in Mexico before getting in the ring with a Canelo Alvarez or something like that. But with Virgil Ortiz Jr., yeah, you could have these different examples of having fights against like Erickson Lubin or what was it? I think they did have his fight against Boachuk. No, that was over in Vegas, right? So like they ain't really had a hometown type of fight for him since his fight against Michael McKinson in 2022. So if you having someone like a Virgil Ortiz that you're trying to build as one of your top guys, and you can't even get him to have like a good crowd within or close to his hometown, I don't know how you're gonna pull something off where you want to have a super fight of sorts against Jerome Bucenis and ask for the money that some of the people in this team are asking for. It's gonna be a tough task. You know what I mean? Um, Wanted to get into this thing here with what's coming up Friday night, man. Man, I don't know, dog. I'm seeing it now. I kind of call this to be like 3 rounds, but I think with it being like a 24-foot ring, they're gonna try to carry this for like 5 or 6. Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua. Joshua getting back in the mix here after over a year since his fight against Daniel Dubois. Um, I said, what was it, on Sunday, that he could potentially be fighting Tyson Fury in 2026. And that would be the super fight that the UK has been asking for since what, like 2020 or 2019. So now he gets this one off against Jake Paul in the 8 round bout, and he's already like what, he's up to like a 12-1 favorite. And I think it kind of like went up because I saw that like 9-1 or like 10-1. And I think people kind of like watched Jake Paul in that workout. So they probably put more money on Anthony Joshua or something, man. Because there's, man, I think this one is just a money grab, so to speak, because we were supposed to have Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, and that whole thing got scrapped. And now you get this like almost like a month later, or like 6 or 7 weeks later. So, hey, props to them for able to still have an event and have it on Netflix and get the money for it. But yeah, I ain't liking it. I ain't liking this all too tough, man. Never fold. What you see from this?
So with this whole fight, first thing first, I gotta see Jake Paul inside that ring for me to officially say that the fight's going down. You know what I'm saying? We done seen the Floyd Schofield of the world, you know what I mean? So anything is possible, right? So but with today, what I seen with the press conference, it's screaming scripted. Cause Jake Paul's acting weird. He's doing a whole bunch of weirdo acts as if like he's acting like he's been there before. Like his biggest fight he lost. I watched this guy lose to Anderson Silva. Like
Mm-hmm.
they robbed Anderson Silva of the fight. Go back and watch the fight and we gonna see. So it's just for me, this fight is just getting weirder and weirder after today. And hopefully Joshua is not on that type of time and where he's taking on scripted fights. And if I was to say how many rounds, under 2 rounds knockout. Know what I'm saying? Jake Paul going to sleep. You feel me? Boxing ain't no game. Cause at first, the first press conference, he was shaking in his boots. Like before he looked at Anthony Joshua, you could see his body language. He's shook, like literally, bro. You feel me? Once he looked up to him, that's when he knew it was real. But now, as the days been going on, he been around Joshua a lot. You see that he acting like the typical Jake Paul, the YouTuber that was just
YouTube with
acting weird.
the
Yeah,
disruptor and all that type of stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
you know what I mean. Yeah, that was something, with that press conference, initial press conference they had in Miami, and Anthony Joshua is there, like, and
yeah.
Jake Paul like,
He was shook, looking at
I'm
the
like, come
body.
on, man.
Now all of a sudden, look at this press conference. If you go in, I seen clips like, cause
Oh,
once I seen certain clips, I didn't want to watch it cause it's just certain vibes you get.
yeah,
You don't even want to waste your time going and look at a whole press conference when you know what you getting on Friday.
right, yeah. So the thing was, it was like you're catching someone in Anthony Joshua that, yeah, he was, recovering from an injury and saying he's taking a break from the game and that type of stuff. But you're getting an Anthony Joshua that was pretty much on schedule to fight around this time.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, yeah, I was gonna have an 8 rounder in either the December 27th thing or the November 22nd thing or whatever. And then I see this here with Jake Paul, and I'm like, oh, really? How many $1 million? Okay, bet. I'm in. I'm in. And then you see him like training with Anatoly Lomachenko or something like that, and training out in Spain, and like, nah, you don't like that. That isn't necessarily a good look. I say, we're asking like, yeah, Jake Paul's doing sparring with heavyweights. Yeah, he is. There was like, one of them, I think it was Cassius Chaney, that was like in the camp with Jake Paul. You had, I think, Jared Anderson in there with Jake Paul and stuff like that. But this, like for him, it's more about is he gonna be able to just get through this particular fight without many issues, because they see that he still is like a draw that people are interested in seeing, regardless of what the result is going to be, right? So for them, they want to be able to kind of have him continue to do that in 2026. They don't want to have it to the point where he might be in some serious trouble here in this fight against Anthony Joshua. And you don't want it to be like how we had Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou. Like he, like at that time, he showed that you ain't supposed to be playing around with your food. So if he does the same thing right here, you're gonna see that same result. You know, I said it was gonna be 3 rounds. The over under is at 2.5. Which is I felt like that was crazy, because it was like, I guess a lot of people, they felt like people were saying either 2 or 3 rounds for this particular fight. But yeah, I'm just like, either Joshua isn't gonna play around with his food, or it's gonna be a crazy situation after, like, if it gets past 3 rounds, especially if there's gonna be like a lot of movement from like Jake Paul. Then you know what I mean. We got like a few of these fights that are on the card. They added what Jamal Harvey from the DC area on the card. I spoke with like Avius Griffin some time back before the original card got postponed. A number of the women's fights are on this, featuring a number of their signees. So they got a pretty full packed card for this thing here. It's just a lot of those fights will be featured on Netflix or on through MVP and stuff like that. So that's the thing about it. It says Joshua versus Paul looks scripted. Jake Paul won't be able to sell any more fights. Hey man, I don't know. People could still be entertained by, I guess different like celebrity boxing and all that type of stuff. But yeah, this one right here, there's like a lot of, as they say, integrity on the line. When it comes to all that. So that's the thing on that front, man.
So
Um,
the thing with what he just said is people won't be able to sell any more Jake Paul fights. If you look at Jake Paul fans, they'll buy anything. They're not
yeah,
in it for the sport. It's just entertainment for them. So
yeah,
it'll be the same things. He'll be able to sell the same amount of numbers. Now, as far as like the real boxing fans watching his fights, that's dead. But the other side, the casuals, they watch anything. You
yeah,
know.
yeah. I mean, that's what they were doing when he was going up against a number of these guys
Yep.
that were, in mixed martial arts, with the Tyron Woodleys, with the Nate Diaz's, the Ben Askrens and all that type of stuff. They were there for like the entertainment value, and that's pretty much what it was. And then a year ago when they had the fight with Mike Tyson, like that was one that kind of like said, "Hey, you still got the aura of Mike Tyson, and still having the interest of people to see like him in the in the ring." But outside of that, you ain't really seen Jake Paul get in the mix with a number of these fighters that are like serious. That's why when I said his fight against Little Chavez, as I call him, I ain't really get too much into that, because Chavez isn't very serious when it comes to boxing anyway. So that's why I was like, yeah, he got a decision. But if Chavez was anything remotely to the level of like where he was against Sergio Martinez or something like that, then the fight shouldn't have been that close. But hey, it's a guy that's quit in the ring multiple times over. So that's
Cha-
kind of like how I put it.
Chavez is the same guy. Instead of him locking in on a sport that he been dedicated to for years. Instead of locking in on the sport and trying to be the best, he quit the sport. Instead, we heard rumors of him being an enforcer for the what you call it,
Yeah, like one of the cartels in
for the
Mexico.
cartel in Mexico, right? It's like that's who we talking
Sinaloa,
about.
yeah.
So Jake Paul and them, they know what they doing. They going out there and hand picking fights that they know they're gonna be able to win, and then they sign a contract to not do certain things for the fighters. It's like fighting with one hand.
Mm, yeah, word. There's asked, did Oscar De La Hoya block Ryan Garcia from being the replacement opponent for Jake Paul? I mean, some may say that, but I think they already had an agreement in place for Ryan Garcia to face
Yeah,
Mario
for that
Barrios.
belt.
Yeah, for that belt. And the other thing too is like, well, you have that contract there with Golden Boy Promotions, that's connected with the zone. So it's like if you had that type of deal, you have to get out of that first or be able to be outbid to be able to like get into something like that, so to speak, there for Ryan Garcia. So we'll see what happens with Garcia there on February.
I
But
think the plan is for them to go undisputed at 47, because we seeing Lewis Crocker and Devin Haney trying to promote the potential fight, and then the only person that's going to be holding them back is Rolly, because Rolly, who is he? He not trying to unify.
yeah, he ain't trying to unify. He's trying to, man. He ain't even trying to fight a mandatory. Like he even got a mandatory, and that, but no one really cares about the mandatory. Just being honest with y'all. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'll have to see what was up with the World Boxing Association convention in Orlando that ended yesterday, because they were supposed to have the whole thing with rankings and mandatories and all that type of stuff. So I had to catch up with that, see what they said for like your mandatories for these world champions or whatever they got, and see if they had any progress when it came to the welterweight division, because they had a mandatory that's been in place ever since May, and no movement yet. So that was it on that front. But that's mostly what I got here for this edition of the Midweek Report. But we do have, like I said, action on Friday. We got Pro Box on Thursday, right? So y'all check out Pro Box TV on Thursday. You're gonna have what, Ramon Cardenas against Eric Robles. That should be the headlining bout. Also want to see like what's going on with Maquan Williams. Is going to be on the card that had the loss in his last bout to Antonio Moran. So I want to see what he does here in his return bout too. So that's a couple of things here for people to check out this weekend. Pro Box on Thursday, the Netflix stuff on Friday, and we probably have a few other things that's going on here before the close of the year when you had that event over in Riyadh on December 27th as well. So that's mainly what I got, man. Anything else from you, Never Fold, here before I wrap it up?
Nothing, bro. We just waiting for the biggest fights in boxing with starting 2026. Um, Hopefully the biggest fight starting 2026. Just everybody get motivated to want to unify, want to go undisputed, want to move up in weight, and just want to be the best. The boxers gotta stop being scary. Y'all in a barbaric sport. It's a contact sport. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to be in a sport to be one of the greatest anyway. Because if you're not, like, anything can happen to you, because you're not thinking about being the best. That type of mentality gonna keep you sharp. So yeah, that would be. Appreciate you, man. I'm gonna catch you on the next episode, my boy. Keep working.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for being part of the midweek report. We're gonna try to be back in the mix here for the Boston Source podcast on Sunday evening, and we got something scheduled tomorrow with Coach Bob Santos. So we're gonna see if we can catch up with him after him having his fighters involved in the San Antonio fights, and also wanted to see if I could touch on what his thoughts are for Mario Barrios joining in with Joe Goosen here for his upcoming bout against Ryan Garcia. So that's a lot that we'll try to catch up with for Coach Bob Santos on tomorrow evening here. So once we you'll get that out the way, then we'll be able to have more content here on the Boxing Source. So if y'all haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell there to get updates on when we do have some content uploaded to the channel. And as always, man, I'll try to work hard for getting the content to y'all. And yes, I still have those trading cards, but like I was saying earlier, The thing there with Terence Crawford, I have to see like what I'll be able to do with this one because I gotta have it sent to Terence Crawford here to see if he'll be able to check it out. But that's what I got. Once again, thanks to Neverfold Sports for joining in here on the Midweek Report, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace out.